Hey guys, today in our lab what we're going to be doing is take an intimate look at flowers, because flowers are actually very intimate, as you would well know by now from lecture. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you guys a really good overview up close and personal of this flower by doing a flower dissection. It serves as a good reminder. This is probably why you've signed up for a botany class, because we dissect plants instead of dissecting animals where you have blood and guts squirting everywhere. So what I'm going to do, guys, is just kind of do a little quick floral review with you regarding the different components of the flower. I'm going to actually use both because some of them are at slightly different stages. So you folks might remember from lecture, if you want to take a look at this beautiful stargazer lily, you'll have this really sticky receptive surface. In fact, sometimes it's so sticky when I put my finger on it, it will have a gummy substance that slides away with my finger. That sticky substance is there on purpose to glue the boy down in the relationship, the pollen. So this sticky surface that you might remember from lecture is that stigma. So again, think sticky stigma. Okay, that's the top here. You can see really nicely here how shiny it is. It's kind of a nice reminder that she's trying to glue him down into the relationship, and that's why it's so gummy and sticky. Okay, next door neighbor flower, you can actually see that the stigma's already been nice and pollinated. You see all that rust-colored stuff at the top? And that's because this one's already actually been pollinated. All that rust-colored stuff is indeed the pollen, the male pollen. Okay. So let's get back to the flower from lectures. Just as a review here. Here's the stigma on top, nice and sticky to catch that pollen. Whoa, here's that long style that the dude has to get all the way through to eventually get into the, pardon here, the ovary. Look at that ovary, folks. It's quite large. It looks like a long, skinny green cucumber. Okay, so again, that's the stigma, the style, and the ovary. Okay, collectively, folks, what's that term again for the stigma, style, and ovary? Yeah, that's going to be, I'm using the term pistil in this course. So those three things together are the pistil. And so this put together, just to dissect this out here in a second, we'll take a look at it a little more closely. This is the female part of the flower that's fertile. Okay. So I'm going to use this flower next door because it's really got some nice ones next door going on. And now we're going to explore the male portions of the chamber that are intimately involved in sexual reproduction. And this really large chamber up here that is loaded with pollen, if you guys see those pollen grains, they look like orange dust. That's called the anther, right? You might recall that from lecture. Beneath that is that long stalk there called the filament. And what's that term again for anther and filament? That's going to be your stamen, okay? So if you look up closely here on the lily, you can see that there's a nice multitude of them. That's to really ensure that reproduction happens, because remember, plants care an awful lot about sex. You know that by now in this class. You see 6 of them there, right? See those 6 stamens pretty readily here. Whoa, and watch all that pollen. If you guys have fun doing flowers on your own, just beware the pollen does stain. So let's take a look at now the intimate structures up close and personal, after we remind ourselves that everything else that's on here, guys, is on here for show. Again, meaning they're not intimately involved in sex, right? Because this beautiful pistil over here and these anthers and the filaments and the stamens, that's the only part that's intimately involved in sexual reproduction. All this other stuff here is for show. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. So let's notice here in back, okay? You guys have this distinct, let's look at it from the underside here. If I were going to ask you guys in today a little bit about this flower, and I asked you guys, well, how many sepals does this flower have? Some people might say, oh gosh, I only see 1 sepal down there and it's green. Nope, that's a leaf, okay? The real answer is looking closely at the flower. The 3 sepals I'm collectively touching in back, and in fact, I'm going to strip them off. So there's our 3 sepals in back, okay? Then here you have the 3 petals that are on the top. They're quite a bit larger in lilies, okay, usually. And then those are the 3 petals. So collectively, guys, sepals and petals are the perianth, okay? So that's kind of looking, again, at the stuff that was for show. What do I mean for show? Think about that. Why are these so beautiful? Why do they smell so good? Why do they have structures here that actually will help maybe trap and help lure in the insects? They're going to help do some work here, not really trap them, but play a role here with all this intimacy, and that is, again, they're luring this in to help with pollination, right? Because remember, an awful lot of angiosperm flowers are animal pollinated, okay? There are some that are wind pollinated too, remember. We're gonna talk a lot about that as well. So anyhow, let's get into the actual dissection itself. So I think it's pretty evident by now that if we were to take a look at these male anthers at top here loaded with pollen, I think it's safe to say that these flowers are in their prime of sexual development right now, meaning these flowers are ready to make some babies, okay? You guys can take a look at the anther color itself. The pollen and the anther are slightly different color here on lilies. So let's just notice what I'm saying. The anthers actually are a little bit of a darkish purple color, okay? Whereas the pollen that is completely covering them is a beautiful rusty orange. And again, if I scrape away some of that orange, it does kind of show us some of that purple there in the background. So that's what we're looking at for a good look at the sexual parts of the male, which again are called what, guys? What's this part called again? Anther. And what's this? The filament. And collectively, that's the stamen. Okay. So that's what we're looking at for the male part. And like I pointed out earlier, there's a lot of good evidence on this flower for pollination already having occurred, because the stigma, unlike its neighbor, which is nice and clear, this one's got a lot of pollen on it already. Okay. So as I spoke of earlier, again, if we actually want to, this is a little R-rated now, guys, sorry. If we want to kind of talk about the floral sex right now, again, you have the pollination, which remember is that transfer the pollen from the male anther to the female stigma and angiosperms. Then the male pollen tube has to get all the way in through there and eventually get into the ovary, and there's something inside that ovary, right? Let's think about that for a second. Here's the ovary. You guys remember what's in the ovary from lecture, hopefully. And I'm going to attempt to show you guys a little bit here, although it might not show up as well on this one. I'm going to show you guys a more mature one in a second here. We'll see how it goes. Oh yeah, you can see one on my knife here. Right inside here, if you look really closely, are some ovules. Ovules, guys, what do those become? Yeah, that's going to be your seeds, right? So again, the ovaries, they actually house the ovules, which inside is the embryo sac. Think of that as the egg holder, right? It has the egg, and then that's going to actually turn into a seed after fertilization. Okay, so that's kind of a nice intimate look at your floral dissection in lilies. You might remember from lecture, because we did the counts earlier, we had a 3-parted stigma, we had 6 stamens, we had 3 petals and 3 sepals. If you recall from lecture, would that make it a monocot flower or a dicot flower? Let's think about that. Multiples of 3s. That is going to make it a monocot flower. Now, to really take a nice look here at what's going to be the ultimate purpose of this, like I have said by now in my class, plants care an awful lot about sexual relations, right? They care about sexual reproduction. And so you guys can see, actually, this is a part of a lily plant that's been pruned. What happens here, right? All the petals fall off. Where'd they go? Well, the flowers doesn't need them anymore, right? Doesn't need to lure in an animal pollinator. You don't see the petals anymore, right? So the petals are gone, the sepals are gone. Where's the stigmas? Where's the styles, right? Well, they're not needed anymore either, and certainly the anthers are long gone. In fact, the poor male parts of the flower, as soon as sex is over, they pretty much fall right off like that. They're done, okay? But here's the deal. Here's the whole intent of what we mean by covered seed, because inside this ovary, you can see the swelling. See, this is how small it was, and this is how big it's getting. This ovary will swell quite large, and again, that's what we mean by encased seeds, right? Those seeds are encased inside of this amazing ovary, which eventually swells into a huge pericarp or fruit, which encases and protects those seeds and keeps them there for when they're ready for dispersal. So one thing I do want to do with you folks before we sign off here is I would like to cut open this very nice mature one. So again, we're cutting off the ovary, which is beginning to turn into a pericarp, right? Meaning fruit. It's starting to swell. Okay, so if I can get a look in here, we might get to see the